Too late for goodbyes, Julian Lennon. It's exactly 10:30. Our next guest's book is called Travelling for the Hell of It, which is described as a kind of travel book. Short stories, journalistic pieces, memoirs and opinions from a lifetime of travelling and living abroad. Some are horrible, some are funny, and some are serious, but they're all very interesting. Our guest is Nick Gerard. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
I was going to attempt to pronounce where you're now living. Is it Olomouc?
Olomouc.
Olomouc?
Olomouc in the Czech Republic.
Wow, okay, I'd never guessed that from the spelling. Wonderful. Now, this is not the kind of book that you would buy if you want pages describing all the nice places to go in a nice way with little maps and all the rest of it, is it?
No, it's not really. It's more a collection of essays and short stories about my life travelling, really, over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and it's fair to say you've been about a bit.
Yeah, that's true. I've lived in 6 countries.
Yeah.
And travelled to loads more over the years, yeah. So.
I kind of get the impression from reading the book that you just kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to go and live in Paris. And so off you go move to Paris, you get yourself a job, you go, I'm bored with this now, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Well, I think that's it. It's about, travelling for the hell of it, just going doing it. And sometimes if you're just bored with what you're doing, just get up and go and do it, get out there and go and visit the places. Change is as good as the rest, as they say.
Yeah.
Just go and do it.
It's a wonderful philosophy, but how do you achieve it financially?
I think that's about the hell of it as well. It's just basically going and doing it. My wife and I went to live in Malawi, and we ran an eco-tourist lodge there on Lake Malawi with no electricity, no communication. And we'd never done it before, but we just kind of did it. So I think I used to be a chef in Paris, but I was a trained chef already in the UK.
Right.
But then I went to Spain in 1989, and I couldn't get a work permit, so I became an English teacher.
That's what happened. Okay, so whereabouts were you in our glorious country of Spain?
I was in Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
And before it became fashionable, I think.
Yeah.
And I had a few hellish moments. That's another part of the book, really, is the hell sometimes of travelling. I got mugged a couple of times, and... but I basically had a great time there and liked teaching. And then from then on, it was quite easy traveling the world. I went to Brazil and was teaching. And I went back to Spain years later and did woofing. Do you know woofing?
Well, I was scared to ask you about this in case it was unbroadcastable, but clearly it's not. So what is woofing? It's nothing to do with dogs, presumably.
Right. It's the worldwide opportunities on organic farms, basically. There's a lot of people, a lot of Brits go over to Spain, actually, in southern Spain. It's basically volunteering.
Yes.
And you're supposed to, you get a taste of Spanish life. You can work on organic farms, or my wife and I work with horses in Andalusia. And it's a great way to see a country. You get free board and lodgings, and you get to see Spain, and you get to experience some of the life there. So
how wonderful. Well, we are broadcasting from Andalusia, although we go all the way up the coast, up the Costa Blanca and up to Mallorca. Whereabouts in Andalusia were you when you were here?
In Lanjaron and Apujares.
Okay.
Apujares. We were there working with horses. Then we were in Pilas by Seville, Barbati on the coast.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Organic olive farms. So yeah, there's quite a lot of people do it, and I think it's good. A lot of expats have got farms as well. They get volunteers coming over to spend time in Spain. So
very
it's
good.
Quite good.
So that's what woofing is then. Well, there's a thing. We've learned a new word, woofing.
It's a verb now, to woof.
To woof. I love that. Yeah. Now, but by the sound of it there, your wife comes along with you on quite a few of these adventures. You're not kind of going off on your own and leaving her at home?
No, Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of traveling. A lot of the stories when I was, when I was younger.
Yes.
And the things I did. But then I met my wife. My wife's Czech. And we ran an eco lodge in Malawi, and then we ran one in Czech Republic as well for about 6-7 years in the mountains in the Czech Republic, you know. So,
fantastic.
Which was great until the economic crisis kicked in and we had less guests and we had to sell up.
Yeah.
That's why I'm living in Olomouc now, yeah.
Yeah, so you were also, you mentioned briefly there in Brazil. You were teaching in Brazil. That must have been an interesting experience.
Well, I was teaching and probably doing a bit too much drinking as well in Brazil, because it is party central kind of thing.
Sure.
But I mean, it's a wonderful place. I think the difference, if you look at Brazil and Africa, is that Brazilian people have nothing the same as Africans, but Brazilians sort of don't care and just party all the time. So, yeah, Brazil was a lot of guns knocking around in bars and a lot of drinking, but a great deal of fun, you know. So.
Yeah, the book, when you describe your kind of more hedonistic moments, you certainly don't mince your words in the book, do you? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. It is no holds barred. That's the kind of style of writing I do anyway. I write poetry and short stories. I suppose you'll call it gritty realism.
Yes.
I mean, it's not the kind of book, you know, that for family reading, I suppose.
No.
But it's being honest. It's an honest account, and it's kind of. I tried to write it as if it was me and you talking in a bar over a few beers.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, there are some serious moments in the book. For example, you have a bit of a pop at the World Aid Organizations for the handling of resources. Tell us a bit about that. Yes,
it's just basic. But being in Africa, I could see a lot of the times that the charity work was kind of being wasteful. The European Union money was being put into ridiculous projects, which on the ground in Africa, you could actually see that the money was just being wasted. In the huge, you know, bureaucrats in London or Brussels were kind of okaying these schemes in Africa, but they just didn't work on the ground, you know, in reality. And there's a huge waste of money going on. And actually, I suppose what's the alternative? Is the smaller organizations do better work.
Yeah.
Small, concrete charity work, something like Ripple Africa, and small charity ideas work much better than the big ones, and they actually help people directly on the ground.
I totally agree with what you're saying, yes. Now we mentioned there you're with your missus and you're running an eco lodge. So for those who are not familiar with what that actually is, tell us what your eco lodge is.
Yeah, it's actually, we were not running it anymore, but we just recently moved to
Okay.
So, but eco lodge, basically, we had a building in the mountains which we did up. It was an old building done up with all green principles, if you like. No chemicals going into the building of the house. We had a kind of organic produce and local produce, sustainable tourism, I suppose, with low impact on the environment and caring about the local community, putting back into the community. So it wasn't a big money-making venture.
Yeah.
People who wanted a holiday that didn't impact on the environment could come and enjoy it and know that they were benefiting local people and having no impact on the environment.
Fantastic. And are your travelling days behind you now, or are you still got the kind of urge?
No, I've got a son now, so I'm kind of staying in Olomouc for a few years.
Yeah.
But my plan is to, when he's about 12, I'd like to take him out of school and do a world tour. Before I'm too old to do it, and he's too old to want to go with his old dad. I'd like to travel the world with him and maybe travelling for the hell of it too, you know.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, Nick. The book, as you mentioned, is Travelling for the Hell of It. Nick Gerard, thank you for joining us on Let's Talk.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Talk Radio Europe.
Talk Radio Europe are expanding. We're looking